A breakthrough for scientists after they had a 20-minute conversation with a humpback whale.
Sperm whale communication, which consists of many sequences of individual alphabet pieces called codas.
An AI just finished processing 9,000 sperm whale recordings. And what it found inside them stopped the researchers cold. Not because the clicks were complex, because they were structured the way language is structured. And when the team realized what they were actually looking at, one of them reportedly went quiet for a long time before saying anything at all.
Hey smart people, Joe here. You're listening to a record called Songs of the Humpback Whale.
This is the story of what the AI heard, why it surprised everyone in that room, and what it means for every assumption science has ever made about what it means to communicate. The assumption that collapsed. Her name is Shafi Goldwasser. She is not a marine biologist. She is one of the most decorated cryptographers in the world. The kind of person who has spent a career decoding communication systems built by governments to stay hidden. She stops in Gruber's doorway, listens to the clicks for a few seconds, and asks him whether he has ever tried running those sounds through a machine learning decoder. Because to her ear, they sound exactly like Morse code. Gruber had never considered it. Nobody had.
Codas are groups of clicks. So what we found is that, in a sense, they're codas, these groups of clicks.
That instinct was not casual curiosity. It was professional pattern recognition from someone whose entire career has been finding structure inside things other people dismiss as noise. To Goldwasser, those whale clicks are not background. They are a code that has never been run through a decoder. Here is what makes that moment so significant. For decades, the scientific consensus on sperm whale communication felt completely settled. Researchers believe sperm whales used roughly 21 distinct click patterns called codas, each one carrying a fixed, simple meaning, a warning, a direction, a contact call. Scientists treated whale communication like a traffic light, a handful of states, a fixed set of meanings. Nothing approaching real complexity. That assumption was not just wrong, it turned out to be one of the most spectacular miscalculations in the history of modern biology. Gruber goes back to those recordings and hears them differently now. He is no longer a marine biologist reviewing background noise. He calls Michael Bronstein, an artificial intelligence researcher, who explains that the same deep learning algorithms powering large language models like ChatGPT could, in theory, be applied to animal communication. The catch was volume. You would need more recordings than any single scientist had ever collected, more behavioral context than any existing whale study had attempted, more computing power than any marine biology project had ever used.
But what's more important than that, I think, is Roger understood scientific papers or science alone won't save the wild world.
And you would need to capture not just sound, but the behavioral context surrounding it. Because without knowing who said what to whom, in what situation, the sounds were still just sounds. They decided to build exactly that. But first, nobody in that room yet knows what they are going to find. And that is the only reason the next 5 years make any sense. The machine that listened in 2020, that hallway question became Project CETI, the Cetacean Translation Initiative, funded by the TED Audacious Project and backed by partnerships from MIT, Harvard, UC Berkeley, and 15 other institutions. The team built a permanent research station in Dominica, where multi-generational sperm whale families have been documented for decades. Individual animals are known by name. Matriarchs are identified. Social hierarchies have been mapped through years of patient surface observation. Then they went further than any previous whale study and instrumentation. Hydrophone arrays were permanently installed along migration routes. Biologger tags attached directly to whale skin via suction cup. Each carried 3 synchronized microphones capable of distinguishing individual voices inside a group conversation. GPS logging. Depth sensors. Accelerometers tracking body movement to within fractions of a degree. The system was engineered to capture not just what the whales said, but who they were saying it to, what they were physically doing at that moment, and what was happening in the acoustic environment around them. Every variable that could give meaning to sound was being logged simultaneously. 9,000 recordings, fed into the same class of deep learning AI that powers large language models.
The next 5 years our team of AI specialists, roboticists, linguists, and marine biologists aim to use the most cutting-edge technologies to make contact with another species.
The algorithm had no prior assumptions, no marine biology training, no idea what a whale even was. It was simply asked to find whatever structure existed, if any existed at all. There was a real possibility it would come back empty, that the clicks would register as statistically random noise. David Gruber knew that. He had been wrong about these animals once already. Sitting in that office with the headphones on, hearing nothing. He was about to find out exactly how wrong. Subscribe now, because what the AI found in those 9,000 recordings is the part of this story that nobody in that room was ready for. What the AI found. The AI did not find 21 codas. It found 156, but the number is almost beside the point. What matters is what is inside them. Each coda has internal structure, tempo variations, rhythm shifts, ornamentation clicks layered in recurring patterns. Those elements are not decorative. They are functional. They work the way phonemes work in human language. Modular units, combined according to rules, generating meaning that no single unit carries alone. Think about what that actually means. The whales are not transmitting 156 preset messages like a fixed menu. They are constructing communication dynamically, from a modular phonetic system built on the same fundamental architecture that underlies every human language ever documented on Earth. Here is the analogy that makes this concrete. English builds millions of words from 44 basic sounds. Remove one, and thousands of words vanish. Add a rule about how two sounds combine, and entirely new words become possible. Sperm whales appear to operate on exactly the same principle, a finite acoustic inventory producing a generative system with effectively unlimited expressive range. The building blocks are clicks. The grammar is real. And here is what that actually means for your brain, because this is the part people miss. When you speak a sentence, you are not selecting from a memorized list of complete phrases.
These weren't the typical harmonious whale songs that I'd been accustomed to. These sounded more like digital data transfer.
You are assembling, in real time, at speed, under social pressure, from a set of components governed by rules you internalized before you could explain them. That is what makes human language generative. That is what separates it from every animal signaling system we had ever documented. And that is precisely what the AI found inside those clicks. Not a signal library, not a cue sheet, a generative system. Dr. Daniela Rus from MIT told reporters that the results show far more complexity than previously believed, and that the findings are challenging the current understanding of what the animal world is capable of. That is the most understated sentence in modern science. Because nothing about what the AI found was a small adjustment to existing knowledge. It was a structural demolition of the assumption that nothing in the animal kingdom had ever independently evolved anything resembling the architecture of human language. Except something had, and it had been doing it in the dark, a mile underwater, for 30 million years. The finding that stopped the room. Then a linguist at UC Berkeley ran a different kind of analysis. Gaspar Bacchus is sitting in his phonetics lab, staring at acoustic readouts from individual sperm whale clicks, the most granular resolution available to modern equipment. And he goes very still, because what he is looking at should not be there. The whales are producing vowel sounds, specifically the ah vowel, the sound in the word father, the e vowel, as in see, and diphthongs, those gliding double vowel combinations like the sound in the word boy. The defining acoustic features of human spoken language had independently evolved in a creature living in complete darkness, under thousands of pounds of water pressure. Bacchus described the finding plainly. Where researchers once thought of whale communication as a kind of Morse code, this analysis shows their calls are more like very, very slow vowels, a complexity that begins to approach human language. Read that slowly. A complexity that approaches human language, from a species that developed its communication system in a completely different sensory world, along a completely independent evolutionary path, with no shared ancestor with humans for hundreds of millions of years. Vowels are not a simple category of sound. They are precise, controlled modulations of frequency through specialized vocal anatomy. the kind that requires an evolved larynx, specific musculature, and the neural capacity to control it with intention. That combination had been considered uniquely human, a product of evolutionary pressures specific to our lineage, in our environment, over our timeline. We evolved toward vowels. Sperm whales arrived at them from a completely different starting point, through echolocation, in an acoustic environment where high-frequency precision determines whether you eat or starve. They did not evolve toward language the way we did. They evolved toward something that, when analyzed by the most advanced acoustic equipment available today, looks functionally identical. That is not a parallel. That is convergent evolution. Two completely separate lineages arriving at the same complex solution through entirely different routes. And when it happens with something as specific as vowels, only one conclusion makes scientific sense. Vowel-based communication is not an accident of human anatomy. It is a feature of intelligence itself. The idea that language, vowels, phonemes, combinatorial grammar, pragmatic context was exclusively ours was one of the last. Clean lines separating human cognition from everything else alive on this planet. The sperm whale alphabet does not challenge that line. It removes the foundation it was drawn on. A conversation. A mile down here is where it gets personal. And this is where Shane Jarrow comes in. Jarrow has spent 13 years in the water, alongside sperm whale families in Dominica. He is not analyzing spectrograms from a lab. He is watching these animals in real time, from a boat, day after day, year after year. And what he has seen makes the acoustic findings feel almost inevitable. The same individual whale produces different codas depending on who it is addressing, what the other whale just said, and what is happening in the immediate environment. That is not a signal system with fixed inputs and fixed outputs. That is pragmatic language use, the ability to deploy communication responsively in real time, adjusted to a shifting social situation. The same flexibility you use when you speak differently to your child than to your boss, or soften a message depending on who is in the room. Jarrow describes watching these interactions from the surface. It becomes impossible not to see cousins playing while chatting, impossible not to see a mother hand her calf to a babysitter and exchange what looks for all the world like a few parting words before diving to hunt. The exchanges last up to an hour. Multiple whales overlap, respond, build on each other's contributions. There is measurable conversational timing, rhythm, turn-taking that occasionally breaks down when two whales click simultaneously, which Jarrow notes appears to be socially acceptable in sperm whale culture, much the way interrupting can be among close family. Think about what that requires from a brain. To produce the right coda for the right whale at the right moment requires not just memory and acoustic control, it requires a theory of mind, an awareness that the other individual has a perspective, different from your own, and that what you say should be calibrated to reach them specifically. That capacity was once considered uniquely human. Researchers studying sperm whales are no longer certain that holds. There are dominant voices and quieter ones. Exchanges that look like disagreements and exchanges that look like reassurances. Interactions that occur only between specific individuals and others that appear to include the entire family. The social architecture visible at the surface maps directly onto acoustic patterns measurable below. These conversations are not random. They are structured around relationships. The brains sustaining those conversations are the largest of any animal on Earth, 6 times the mass of a human brain. Sperm whales live in matrilineal families with multi-generational social structures, cultural traditions transmitted from grandmother to mother to calf across centuries, and coordinated deep-water hunting strategies executed in the pitch darkness, across hundreds of meters of open ocean. Behaviors that require real-time, multi-party information exchange to work at all. These are not simple animals. They never were. Science was simply not listening closely enough to understand what they were actually doing. And here's the thing that keeps Jarrow up at night. He knows there is a conversation happening. He just cannot hear what it says yet. Structure is not meaning yet. Here is where we have to be honest with you, because this is the part of the story that matters. The AI has mapped the grammar. It has not translated a single word. Structure is not meaning. And that gap between knowing the architecture of a language and knowing what it says is the entire next phase of the project. The phonetic inventory has been identified. The combinatorial rules have been modeled. the vowels have been cataloged. Individual whales have been profiled by their acoustic signatures. Conversational patterns between family members have been documented across years of continuous recording. All of that is real, verified, and peer-reviewed. What nobody knows, yet, is what any of it actually encodes. What does a specific coda sequence mean? What is the difference in content between a rising tempo pattern and a falling one? What does it mean when a mother clicks at length to her calf versus when a matriarch addresses the whole group? Nobody can answer that today. But they are building the system that will. Meaning requires correlation. It requires building a data set deep enough that patterns emerge between specific vocalizations and specific observable behaviors, matching what is said to what is visibly happening in that exact moment. Next-generation biologger tags are now logging audio from 3 synchronized microphones alongside depth, GPS coordinates, body orientation, and the acoustic output of every nearby whale simultaneously. All of it feeding into a growing behavioral archive being cross-referenced against decades of observational records. Now think about what 7 decades of unread language actually means. A sperm whale can live 70 years. The matriarch of a family alive in the Caribbean today may have been born before modern sonar existed. She has spent her entire life communicating with her family in a system that science only just admitted might be language. Whatever she has said across those decades, whatever knowledge she transmitted, whatever warnings she issued, whatever she told the young ones about how the world works, which hunting grounds to trust, which waters had changed, which family members were gone and why, all of it happened in a language we could not read. Project CETI is not entering that conversation as translators with a finished dictionary. It is entering as students who have just learned the alphabet, one behavioral correlation at a time, one pattern at a time. And every hour of new recording makes that dictionary slightly less blank. The grammar is real, the words are coming. What changes if they're right? Let's talk about what happens when this breaks through, because the stakes here are not small. In the 1960s, researchers Roger Payne and Scott McVeigh proved humpback whales sing complex, evolving songs. Before that, most people thought of whales as large, commercially valuable marine animals, ecologically present, but not cognitively significant. That one finding changed the public's entire mental model of what a whale was. It sparked the Save the Whales movement, led to the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and pulled multiple species back from the edge of extinction. One discovery about whale intelligence rewrote international conservation law, proving sperm whales have language, not songs, not signals, but a full compositional linguistic system with vowels, phonemes, and grammar, could make that look modest. Jarrow explains why the framing is everything. When researchers can talk about how important whale grandmothers are to their families, the significance of being a good neighbor, the cultural diversity within whale communities, that resonates in ways no abstract conservation argument ever can. People protect what they relate to. Language creates relation. And here is the hard part. Commercial whaling killed hundreds of thousands of sperm whales in the 20th century. Ship strikes kill dozens every year. Underwater noise pollution, from industrial shipping and military sonar, broadcasts interference into the acoustic space where an entire community holds every social exchange, every family conversation, every transmission of cultural knowledge, every single day. If that community speaks a language, then the noise is not just environmental damage. It is something closer to the systematic destruction of a culture's ability to speak. Legal scholars are already asking what follows from this science. If sperm whales use language to share ideas, maintain relationships, and transmit cultural knowledge across generations, do they qualify for legal personhood? Do they hold rights the law has never been forced to confront? And if the answer turns out to be yes, if personhood is ultimately a function of language and complex inner life rather than biology, then we have been treating persons as resources for centuries. That is not a comfortable place to arrive, but it is exactly where this science is pointing. The question, nobody is ready for the AI, is still running. The data keeps arriving. Shane Giroux is back in Dominica. He is watching the same families he has watched for 13 years. The matriarch surfaces. She clicks once, then again. a calf clicks back. And somewhere inside that exchange, inside those modular phonemes and vowel structures and recursive rhythms, there is something being said. We just cannot read it yet. But think about what the whales alive today have witnessed. They have watched the ocean change in ways no human has, documented from the inside. They have lost family members to ships they could hear coming and could not escape. They have watched the acoustic environment they rely on for everything, for family, for memory, for the transmission of everything they know, become increasingly saturated with industrial noise that fills every ocean basin on Earth. If they have language, and the evidence now says they do, then they have been talking about all of this. They have been talking about us. That is the weight of what Project CETI is reaching toward. Not just the translation of an animal communication system, the recovery of a perspective on this planet that has existed for 30 million years. A perspective that watched humans arrive, watched us industrialize, watched us fill the ocean with noise and nets and ships, and has been forming thoughts about it in a language we refuse to believe existed. The alphabet has been cracked, the vowels have been named, the grammar has been mapped, and somewhere in the Caribbean right now, a 70-year-old matriarch who was born before sonar existed is saying something to her family that we do not yet have words for. We will. That is what keeps the researchers in that room. That is what keeps Jarrow in the water. That is what keeps the recorders running, the correlations building, the dictionary filling in one behavioral match at a time. The moment Project CETI decodes the first full sentence, the world does not just gain a translation, it gains a witness. Subscribe, because when that sentence surfaces, you are going to want to have been here from the beginning. And if this one hit you the way it should, the next video is already waiting.